Tonight's dinner will be Swedish meatballs, featuring Beyond Meat's Beyond Beef ground plant-based protein and NeatEgg to bind it, with some 4C gluten-free breadcrumbs, because in this house we are all gluten-free. So enjoy and follow along with the recipe. Okay, so we are going to be making Swedish meatballs, and we're going to be using Beyond Meat, Beyond Beef, which is a ground beef replacement product. This is 1 pound. That's going to go into the bowl. Okay. To that, we're going to be adding the equivalent of 2 eggs using the NeatEgg egg replacement. I'm just going to put that in as well. Comes out of the thing. Completely gross. And 3 garlic cloves. Actually, nope, I'm sorry. That was 4 garlic cloves that have been minced. Don't want to shortchange you. I'm going to add a couple grinds of black pepper. A little bit of salt. This is pink Himalayan sea salt. To this, I'm going to be adding 1 cup of the 4C gluten-free plain breadcrumbs. And I'm going to mix this up and basically get it ready to be fried in a pan. Here you can see I've started mixing and incorporating the ingredients. Just want to get them well mixed, well incorporated, so when you start to fry them they don't fall apart and they kind of look like a meatball. I'm sure they'll look exactly like a meatball. This meat looks exactly as if I was using ground beef, but obviously I am not. Okay, so I'm just going to ball up a couple of these. I'm using a 1 tablespoon measure, and you want basically, a heaping tablespoon. Forms real easily. You don't want to necessarily squish it too much, just enough to hold its shape. My dogs would concur, but I'll start rolling these up, and then I'll get the pan out and heated so we can cook them off. Okay, so you can see that we've now prepared the Swedish meatballs. They're ready to be cooked. We got 21 out of this batch, so 21 1-inch balls. So if you're thinking about portion size and what have you, and how many mouths you have to feed, this was a 1 pound package of the Beyond Meat, Beyond Beef plant-based ground, and I'm going to start cooking these off. And then once these are cooked, I will prepare the Swedish meatball sauce. Okay, so I started adding the meatballs to the pan. You kind of got to let them cook for a bit. You want them browned on all sides. And once they're browned, I will take them out of the pan, set them aside, and then start making the sauce. Okay, so the meatballs have been thoroughly cooked, and now we're going to make the sauce. Into the pan is going to go 3 tablespoons of vegan butter. We're going to let that melt down. Okay, so this is the same pan I cooked the meatballs in. I didn't really clean it out because, really, that's unnecessary. So we're going to do this, and I'm using gluten-free flour to make a roux. Regular flour actually will work significantly better, but you just want to kind of cook this up and watch it carefully. Especially regular flour will burn. This will burn as well. You just kind of want to make sure that you cook out the floury taste to this, because this is really the thickening agent that is going to be the base of our sauce, or one of the bases. So now I'm going to slowly add in 2 cups of veggie stock. Now if you were using regular flour, this would be a lot lighter in color. The gluten-free flour that I'm using is fairly dark in color. Keep stirring it. This is obviously a piece of the meatball. Okay, that was 1 cup. You may want to add a little bit slower than I just did, but as usual, I'm pressed for time. Okay. So now we're going to slowly add in the 2nd cup. And really you want to make sure there are no lumps in this, because nobody likes a lumpy gravy. I'm not a big gravy person, but with Swedish meatballs, that's kind of the whole point. It's the Swedish part of the meatball. Hey. So once again, I'm going to let this come up to a boil before I add the next ingredient. So now I'm going to add 1 can of coconut milk to this. And obviously that's going to give it that signature creaminess. And it doesn't really add much in the way of coconut flavor, because we're going to be adding some other spices. Actually, I'm not going to add the whole can, because I think this looks pretty good. But you kind of have to go with the flow, as they say. See how it looks. And the last ingredients that I'm going to be adding are in this little dish right here. I have 2 tablespoons of liquid aminos. You could use gluten-free tamari or soy sauce. You know, it just has to have that little salty bite to it. I'm not adding any additional salt to this because of the liquid aminos being already salty. There is a teaspoon of Swedish style mustard, which looks a lot like our typical brown mustard, like the Gluten style brown deli mustard, and a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of garlic powder. That's all going in. Which we now continue to stir. We'll let it thicken up a little bit, and then we're going to add back the meatballs. So while that's starting to thicken up, I'm going to start adding in the meatballs. I'm going to turn down the heat because it's boiling a little bit faster than I would like. For sanitary purposes, probably better off using the tongs. got a thing there helping me. So we're just going to let this simmer for about, I'd say, 8 to 10 minutes. Let the meatballs absorb some of that nice saucy goodness. And we'll be back to plate it up. So here's the finished product. I added a touch of dried parsley to it. You could use fresh. Now, if you have fresh lingonberries, that you can cook those down into a nice little jam and add a little bit of that to the final output. And bon appetit!